So hi guys, so welcome to this practical, which is fulfillment part 3. In this practical, we're going to be connecting now our fulfillment to Dialogflow. So we're going to do this really step by step, and I'm just going to show you. I want to emphasize how you actually, of course, do this correctly and how to test locally first before you upload to Heroku. Okay, so that's the main thing for today. Okay, so now we're in Visual Studio Code, and let's just remember how we actually run our routes, right? Our server and our routes. And so if you remember, if you did the practicals from last week, you remember how we added all these routes, even the basic routes. And so that is the code. Okay, so let me just add a folder to the workspace, the folder I used for the practical. So let me just do that. So this is the one, so that it matches what I did in the practical, in the screencast, I mean. Okay, so right now I'm changing directory. Make sure you're in the correct directory whenever you test this. Okay, so I'm gonna type node app.js just to test it. Okay, and so if you remember, we're gonna run on this dynamic port, which is 49734. Okay, so these are all the routes that we have actually been doing, which we already did, just to show you it's the same code, right? So that's the port. This port is important when we are uploading to Heroku. Well, we don't hard code the port, okay? We want to make sure we don't hard code. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the browser and test this just to make sure it's working. It's always good to keep on testing to make sure every step is working. And so I'm just going to make sure the port is correct. So I'm typing now 49734, and you see the thing is working. Okay, so that's good. So it's working properly. Okay, so now let's upload this to Heroku. So if you remember the steps, I'm typing git add dot git commit, right? Okay, my spelling was wrong here. So I'll type git commit dash m test, then git push Heroku master. Enter for that, and it says everything's up to date. Okay. So it means I didn't make any change actually, so it will tell you that if you did not make a change. It's supposed to keep track of your changes. So that's fine. Okay, we know it's working, so we can just test it in Heroku, make sure that that's running as well, because we already uploaded it. If you made a change, then it would probably reflect. Okay, so right now I'm going into Heroku. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is clicking the bot. See, our bot is here. Just click that, that's our project. I mean, that's our project, right? Our server. And we go click the settings. And if you scroll down, you should see there's the URL, right? If in case you don't remember your URL. Yeah. So you just go back to Chrome and just okay, so we're testing it out now in Chrome. The URL that was uploaded properly, and there you go. Okay, so always make sure that it's running. Test it. Use this basic test if you're not sure if your things are working properly. Test the other routes if you must. They should all be working, right, before you do anything else. So if there's any issue, you can also restart Heroku in case it's not showing up for whatever reason, but you think it's correct. You can restart the dynos in Heroku, right? Okay, so that's working. So the next step is, let's now test a route for Dialogflow. Okay, so this is the route for Dialogflow. We're gonna call the route /chat. Okay, and actually you can paste this route maybe just below There are a few places you can place it, but don't place it too high or too low. Just paste it maybe just below our first route. Let's just paste it below that. Yeah, just paste it below the first route. Paste. There you go. Okay, I'll format it a bit because it doesn't seem exactly correct. Okay, so make sure the syntax is correct. Alright, so this thing here, if you notice, there is a send, which will send back a string. Alright, but this string is a JSON string. Right? And there's this JSON that stringify, which will convert the object to a string. Okay, so the thing is, the reason why you're doing it in this way is because Dialogflow expects this format, fulfillment text colon whatever, to display to the client, right? So that the client can see it. That is what the client expects, right? That's what Dialogflow expects as a response to the client. Fulfillment text and then whatever string you want to display. So that is the reason why it looks like that. Okay, and it has to be in JSON format. So very simple, right? Just put it there. That will appear on your client, in your Messenger or Facebook Messenger or whatever. Okay. Okay, so you can see that this is a post. It's expecting, Dialogflow will expect back a post. This route is a post. So information from Dialogflow will go into as a post request. So basically, JSON.stringify, in case you didn't know, will convert the object to a JSON string, right? It has to be a JSON string. Okay. And so you cannot just leave it as an object and send that. It has to be a JSON string. So it is post because Dialogflow will send the request as a post. Okay. We're going to see that later. Okay, so now that we have that, we put a console here just to make it more clear what's happening. It's just for debugging, right? That we have this console.log. It's for us to see what's going on. I encourage you to put more console.logs to understand your code better. Okay, so now let's rerun our code. So again, you always make sure you want to quit and then just rerun everything once you make changes to your code. Okay, now we need to run this because it's a post request. To test this, we need to have a software called Postman, which will do this. You have to download this separately, right? This is the way you would test a post request. Now for Postman, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is once you are able to install this, you have a button here, like something like a new button, which will allow you to make a new request. It's really, really simple. So here I'm just going to click the new button, and then I will say I want a new request. Okay, I click request. Yep. And then I just place whatever name. It doesn't really matter this detail. So you can put whatever name here. It's not important. Then you can just choose some folder or create a collection, whatever. Then you just save that. This is not the important step. You just have to get through this somehow. We want to reach this form where you see a get here, which is the verb, and then you have a text box here where you can place the URL for testing. Okay. Now because we are going to test a post, right? We want our route accepts a post request. We need to specify that our request is a post. So I have to change from get to post. Okay. And I also have to put the proper request URL, just like a browser. Okay. So there I'm typing node app.js, right? I'm running again, get the port. So I'm going to type http://127.00.1:49843. Okay. And then click send. And there, it's working, right? So this is our first test. We're just testing a route that is working. So Postman is just like any other browser to test it. But what's special about Postman is you can also test a post request. Post means there is data in the body of the request. You're sending data in the body, not in the URL, in the body of a request. Okay, you cannot see the body. So only Postman, a tool like Postman, will allow you to do a test like this. Okay, so I have to make a few changes here, especially the verb. Okay, so I have to put the proper route, right? It's /chat click this to change it to post there. Then click send. So I'm gonna click send there. And you see that it returns the JSON string. You see, this is exactly what Dialogflow wants as the response back. So if Dialogflow sends the request to your route, then you will have Postman, you will have your route send back fulfillment hello there. This is what Dialogflow wants to receive, because this will be sent to your client, right? This will be sent to the client. This is what is expected. There you go. So it's working, right? It's working. So now you want to test this and place this in Heroku. So now that we've tested locally, only then will we test this, place this in Heroku. Do not go to Heroku first. Always test this locally, especially when you're learning these things. Okay, so I'm just gonna git add dot, enter, git commit m test, enter, git push Heroku master, enter, and we upload it. Okay, so now we can go back to Postman and actually test this now. So we put the proper URL /chat, yes, click send. Now this is in Heroku already, right? This is live, and there you go. Now it's working. So you see, that's the second test. Now it's in Heroku. Now it's ready to be connected to Dialogflow. Okay, so that's what I call the meticulous testing that you need to do, just to be sure, especially if you're beginning. So we've done all of these steps already in the practical, right? I'm just being slow, but actually this is pretty fast once you become more familiar, huh? Okay, so the next step is to actually test this in Dialogflow. So we're going to create an intent, if you don't have one, called say something, which we did in the first practical. But if you have it already, you can use the same intent. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going. I don't have the intent, I believe. I'm inspecting it. I don't have the intent. Some of you might have it if you're using the same bot from the original. That's fine. So what I can do now is create a new one. Okay. So the training phrase will be say something. And then the response, we don't have a response, right? Because the response will be coming from fulfillment. Right. So to activate fulfillment, we need to click that disclosure button there, see? And then you will be able to enable the webhook. So let me click enable, click there. So click save. Yep. And now you can go to fulfillment. Click fulfillment. And I'm gonna disable this inline editor because you can only do either or. Either use the webhook or use the built-in cloud functions, right? So in this case, I'm gonna demonstrate webhook. This is our custom server. Click enable, and I'm gonna change this URL to our URL. Okay, so let me look for our URL once again. If you don't remember, it's this one. It should be exactly this route, right? This URL with this route, right? So I'm just gonna paste that in, make sure it's correct. Okay, now I actually made a mistake here, which I'm gonna show in a moment, but let me just run this first. So I don't know if you can see the mistake, but I did make a mistake. It's a very tiny mistake, but let me just show you what happens if you make a mistake in your URL. So I'm just going to click save. Okay, let's test it. See, so the response is, oh, there, oh, sorry. Oh, wait, no, I didn't make a mistake. I just clicked correct. Sorry. Yeah, I made a mistake. It's correct. So you can see it's returning back, right? It's returning hello there. You see that? So you can also test this from the web demo. So we're here in the web demo. Just click say something and you see it'll return hello there, right? You see, so if you put the proper formatting, fulfillment text, this is what Dialogflow expects, and so it will return back this and display it in the client. See? So that's as simple as that. You can display whatever you want by just simply putting fulfillment text and then the string that you want to display. Okay? So there you have it. So that's the connection now between Dialogflow and your server. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. So the next thing now we're going to do is we're going to handle the data being sent by Dialogflow. So if you remember, Dialogflow will send a lot of data about the intent. So it'll send things like the intent, the entities, like all of these pieces of code of data will actually be sent by Dialogflow to your route. So we're going to demonstrate how to read information from that that request by Dialogflow. Okay, so you can see this precisely once again. Okay, so from here, let's just test this. If I click tap say something, okay, I will tap diagnostic info, tap it. Okay, so you can see here, this is the actual request sent by Dialogflow to your fulfillment. Okay, now you can choose any of these. They all look similar: fulfillment request or fulfillment response. I'll just choose fulfillment request. They're actually all very similar. They'll all work actually. So you can see there's a lot of data here, right? They show you, for example, the query text. This is the information that the user tapped, right? That's the utterance of the user. You type, say something, it's reflected here. This will be sent to your fulfillment for you to do whatever you please, right? You can also see here the intent is sent to you. Okay, so the intent name is basically here. You can see it, right? It's under display name. See, so this data is sent to you, and you can use this intent to know what is the intent the user just sent, right? So that's how you can actually distinguish between intents. So basically what you want to do is just copy this so that we can test this properly. We're going to copy all of these things. Okay, so okay, so you notice the structure. It's very important to see the structure. That display name is inside of intent, right? And the name of the intent is called say something. So it's important to see this structure. So now I'm going to copy the raw response. So I click it, right? So this is saved now. I want to place this, I just want to place this data into Postman so we can test it properly. All right. So we're going to simulate Dialogflow sending this request over to our fulfillment. So to do that, we have to place this in the body, right? So for Postman, they have a feature to allow you to place data into the body to do a proper post request. Okay. So I'm going to click body, right? To place data into the body, I'm going to choose click raw, then change this to JSON, right? Then I'm just going to paste the information right here, the data, which Dialogflow is actually sending. There you go, right? So now we're ready to send this post just like Dialogflow would to our route or to our server. Now, to test this first, I recommend you test this locally first. So don't test it on the one on your route in Heroku. Test it locally, make sure it's working, especially when you do more coding and you're not sure whether it's working or not. It's easier if you just test it locally. So run the server locally first. Don't put it in Heroku first. Okay. So right now I'm going to change this to a local, to our local. So I'm going to run our server first locally, right? Yeah, so it's always good to test locally first. Okay. Okay, so let me type that in. Okay, so that's our local URL. Make sure it's /chat because that's where we want to send it. Click send. Right now, this is where I made a mistake. Sorry. So the mistake, yeah. So you can see you don't get any response because there was a mistake somewhere. All right. So you notice from my console, nothing was triggered. Right? Nothing was triggered, and so the mistake was actually there. I should put an S. There should be no S in our local, right? It should be just HTTP, right? And there you have it. So you see now it is returning what we want, which is hello there, right? So obviously nothing is happening yet because we did not put any code to read from the body of the data. Okay. Okay, so this is the code now we have to add in. So here we are going to be reading from the body of the data. Okay, so if you look at the structure of this, we see that there is a key called query result, which contains all the data that we want, right? The key is named query result. Inside query result, there is a key called intent, right? So this is inside query result. Okay, it's called intent. And inside intent, you see there's a display name, like so. Okay, so you have to know the structure of your data, right? So that you can read from it properly, right? So you have to analyze it a little bit. So what's the name of the key? What is the data inside this key, right? Is it an object? Yeah. And so if you remember how you read a JavaScript object, you use dot notation to actually read a particular key, right, from an object. Now it might be helpful to go to this JSON lint. I'll click it right now. Click. Yep. Then you can paste. So this is just for you to maybe visualize a little bit better. Click validate here, and then you can see now a little bit more indentation. Maybe it's more helpful. So it's just a tool. So there, see, query result is inside the object. That's the key. Inside query result, you can see all of these keys there, right? Inside query result, and one of them is intent. And inside intent is another object, and inside it is name and then display name. Okay, so that is why you see here query result dot intent dot display name. Right? So let's just type that in. So what shall we call it? Also, by the way, before you do it, when you're reading a request body, a post body, you need to place this piece of code. It's called app.useExpress.json. This will do the work of reading the data from your body. So this is very important. If you're using post JSON data in the body, as Dialogflow does, you must put that app.useExpress.json. You must put that. Okay, just put it there. Just keep it there. Okay, right? Whenever you're going to read JSON data from, from anywhere. In this case, Dialogflow will send JSON post data. So now let us place some code to read that display name, right? So it will be. So we shall call it intent equal to rec, which is an object here, right? REQ contains the request data. Dot body, because it will be in the body, right? Dot query result. Remember the key is called query result. Take note of the case. Dot intent. Dot display name, right? If you remember. Okay. So this will read that particular piece of information. See? So it just matches. Again, I just want to repeat. It's because it matches the structure. Okay. You have to know the structure of your data. Okay, so now we can now place the intent, right? Because we want to display out the intent. What did the user, so the response now will contain the intent of the intent name, right? So that we know that we are reading from the body of the message, from the message Dialogflow is supposed to send us. Okay, so that's the most important part. We're stringifying it. this console is not really used for anything. It's just for us to know what is being displayed. It's useful for finding errors and debugging, right, so that we can see it. So again, let us make the test. Again, locally first, test it locally, right? Don't put it to Heroku first, test it locally. So again, we'll place the local port here, the proper port. Click send. Yeah. And you can see now that we have read properly. See, we see say something. So this say something is coming from this display name. You can actually make the change here since it's only a simulation, right? And you will see that if I click send, it displays the same thing, right? So you can play around with this data there. The most important is it reading. Our route is reading from the message, the body data. And so with that, we are ready to upload to Heroku. So only after tested locally, I recommend now you can test it in Heroku, because now you know it will work. So again, same steps. Done. Okay, so it's done. Now let's test now our route in Heroku before we test it in Dialogflow. Huh? So again, test it in Postman first, but now you'll test the route in Heroku, which is our cloud service. So the live cloud service. So same thing. You have to go to Postman. So we're copying the link. Paste it. Click send. And there you go. So it sent out this data in Postman and it's ready to go, right? So it's working. So now we can test it in Dialogflow. Alright, so now we can test it, right? Because it's already in Dialogflow. Let's see how it works. Say something. And there it is, see? Now it's reading the intent and telling you it say something. See? So now if you understood this concept and you got it working, this is the core for making your bot really powerful. No? Because now that we can read the data coming from Dialogflow, we can actually do some logic, right? Based on the intent, based on the parameters, what kind of response do we want, right? So we can apply some logic. We can go to a database, for example, or go to a API service to actually make this work, right? So I hope you found this video helpful, and then this will be our foundation. So please practice this. Please make sure you understand the concepts here. Play around with it, no? And I think if you understood this concept very well, the next ones will be, very easy to grasp. All right. Because this part, a lot of people already have a hard time, understanding this.